All right, so today we are joined by Jordan Cannata. He's played with a lot of different groups, which we'll get into. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing well, doing well. How's everything been over there? So you're in the East Coast, right?
East Coast, yeah, New
Yeah.
York.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. So we know that you started pretty early. You got some records from your dad at the age of 5. What were those that got you going?
It was a big collection. It was everything in like the classic rock world, ranging from the 60s to the late 80s, some early 90s. But I mean, first and foremost was definitely the Beatles. I mean, he gave me a large Beatles collection. That was the thing that really got me going.
Nice.
But I mean, it had everything from Zeppelin and the Who to Van Halen to Guns N' Roses to AC/DC to Leonard Skinner and the Outlaws to Journey. I mean,
Nice.
it was, a pretty wide range, but all in the rock world for the most part.
Okay. Was there some that stuck out to you? I mean, obviously the Beatles would have, but were there others that you really just kind of gravitated towards?
Yeah, definitely. There were a couple in particular. I definitely gravitated toward the Appetite for Destruction album early on.
Okay. Okay.
I definitely gravitated to Mob Rules, Black
Okay.
Sabbath.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
iron- Ironically, I heard that before I heard Ozzy Osbourne Sabbath. So I
Yeah.
was actually
Yeah.
exposed to Dio Sabbath first, which is, I know, backwards for most people, but
Well,
that's
so
how I kind of found them.
real quick, I listen to Eddie Trunk all the time. He was the same way. He heard Heaven and Hell before anything else. Like that was what he got into.
Yeah.
So a lot of people actually did, which is crazy to think. But yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead.
So those those were definitely on the list. Journey Captured, the live album. That
Okay.
one
Yeah.
was definitely a big one for me. Um, and as where the Beatles are concerned, he gave me a huge collection, but the Help album was the one that probably got me started. Help and Abbey Road were the two that I that
Oh,
I
yeah.
latched onto.
Yeah. Abbey Road's so
Um,
progressive too. So
yeah, a little bit more.
it
But
is. It is. Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on and on and on. He gave me he gave my brother and I a really large collection of music to sync up to. So, I mean, it was never ending with, AC/DC albums and, but it just, those were probably some of the few that I really latched onto first.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you started playing at 8, playing drums officially, I guess you could call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I
Okay.
started when I was 8 years old.
Do you remember the first kit that you had, the name of it?
I do. I do.
Okay.
It was a Percussion Plus kit.
Okay. Mine
Percussion
was the
Plus.
Max,
Yeah.
two X's.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It was a Percussion Plus kit. I actually have a picture of it on my website.
Okay.
There's a page where there's a picture of me as a little kid with
Mhm.
my original drum teacher who I worked with for many, many, many years. And so I actually still have photos of that kit.
Very cool. Did you start lessons right away, or did you kind of feel
Yeah.
around the kit first? You did. Okay.
No, I started right away. It was I started taking lessons at the store that my parents bought me the drum kit from,
Oh, okay.
and the teacher that I started working with at that store, he and I worked together for a long time. So
Very cool.
yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's good. I was self-taught really, really for a long, long time. I took lessons and it just didn't click for me because
right.
I'd already done my own. It was hard for me to learn from someone else, having
Mhm.
my own style. So I wished I had started lessons early, but it just wasn't an option. So that's really
Right.
cool that you did right away. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I think that For me, lessons definitely was the way to go. I definitely found that, having the guidance right from the get-go was a big help for me. But I know so many people who were either self-taught for a while before they started lessons or never did lessons and were totally self-taught. And there's some real upside to that too, because I think that one thing that I had to kind of get out of was the fact that, like, when you take lessons, you start to approach things like there's rules, whereas a lot of the people who are self-taught, they don't learn rules, so to speak. So they kind of feel a little more free to kind of create their own vibe. And I think it took me a little while to kind of realize that, like, oh, you know what? All the drummers that I love, they're the drummers who kind of broke the rules and wrote their own rules. And I think a lot of the self-taught people kind of pick that up quicker because they're never given a limitation. They're just
Yeah.
free to experiment. So it's
Yeah.
like there's plus and minus to each.
Sure. Yeah. It's just I can't. Can you read music?
I can, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I can look at it and kind of figure it out, but I can't just sight read. So that's something I wish I
Gotcha.
had learned. And it's drums is tough to learn how to
It
do that.
is, because everybody writes it a little differently
They
because
do.
every
Yeah.
kit different sizes, so it's not
Mhm.
always the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The hi-hats and snare and all that can be in different spots and all that. And yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely can be a little wacky with drums,
It
but
is.
yeah, I my teacher was very much into. He taught by giving me sheets to read and stuff like that. So I was reading music from pretty much my first couple of lessons on.
That's really
Very
cool.
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Who are some of your influences?
Well, Ringo was the one who made me want to play. Like I said, the Beatles was the thing that got me started. So definitely, Ringo right out of the gate was number one. And then, like I said, I kind of, as I went through all those records that my dad gave me, I started not just listening to the songs, but studying the drummers. So I found Keith Moon and Alex Van Halen and Steven Adler and all those guys. So I kept learning all those different drummers. Then I would say the two drummers that I found kind of at the same time when I was um, drumming it, for maybe a couple of years at this point, that my teacher had exposed me to were Neil.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Neil Peart, obviously, he's definitely one of my heroes,
Mhm.
and Mike Portnoy. Those two
Oh,
guys
those are my
were.
two guys. Yeah.
Yeah, they were probably my two biggest influences, kind of as I was developing from like childhood to early teens.
Mhm.
They were definitely the two that I studied the most. And then after that, when I got to like my teenage years, I started kind of venturing out and finding newer things, and getting into some of the more new metal and heavier, more modern rock stuff. So that's when I found Morgan Rose from Seven Dust.
Okay. Seven
he's
Dust. Yeah.
he's like my number one. I love Morgan. He's incredible. That's when I found Will Hunt. That's when I found Sean Kinney from Alice in Chains. That's when
Yes.
I found, um you know I started actually even getting out of that and started venturing out of the rock world, and I started really listening to a lot of funk music.
Okay.
And that's when I discovered David Garibaldi from Tower
Oh,
of
yeah.
Power.
Yeah.
So I'm like a weird mixture of, these influences of Portnoy and Morgan Rose and David Garibaldi, and these guys all kind of became my favorites that I just started taking from every one of them and mixing and matching and just kind of trying to find my own way.
That's how I was, especially being self-taught. That's how I was. I wanted to find as much different genres that I could and incorporate those styles into my playing. So I was
Right, exactly.
definitely,
Same thing. Yeah. So
yeah,
it
yeah,
took me a little while to find some of them. I think I can admit that when I was a kid, I was a little stubborn in that I was like rock guy. I'm a rock person and I'm not listening to anything else. So it was like I didn't have the focus to think about, like, oh, let me go check out this Tower of Power band. And then finally, when I grew out of it a little bit and I listened to it, I was like, whoa,
yeah,
this is cool. So,
for sure.
and then he became one of my heroes. I bought some of his drumming books and started studying his stuff.
Yeah,
So it just kind of morphed, and over the years I've just had these new influences creep up on me over time.
yeah, yeah,
Very
for
cool.
sure. I'm kind of the same way. Like it took me a while to get into like the Steely Dan, and now I'm like, wow, that drumming on like Asia and stuff is
Oh
just
yeah.
phenomenal.
It's funny that that album is quite possibly my dad's favorite album. He
Yeah.
plays it all the time. So, and I was closed-minded to it too. And then,
Yeah.
years later, I started listening and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And that's when, started figuring out
Yeah.
Steve Gadd and
Yeah.
Bernard
Yeah.
Purdy. And a few years back, I actually went to see Steely Dan with my dad.
Okay.
Did the entire Asia album at the Beacon
Nice.
Theater in New York, and I saw for the first time Keith Carlock do it. And I was like,
Oh,
whoa,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
was crazy. So yeah, just that's ironic you mentioned that album, because when it comes to Steely Dan, that's the one that I've heard the most in my life, because my dad's always been in love with it.
Yeah. And it's one of those too, when you sit down or you listen to it, it's like, oh, okay. You sit on a plate like, wow, those little ghost notes they're putting in there and
Yeah, man.
those fills, and it's like, wow, that's so
Yeah.
cool. It's just so tasteful and all that. You don't realize it until you start playing it. You're like, this is tougher than I thought it was gonna be.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They're no joke.
Yeah,
No
for
joke.
sure. For sure. So you played your first bar gig at 11 with your brother.
Yeah.
Was that a paying gig, and how did that go?
No, so the first few that I did were not paying. We
Okay.
were just lucky enough to kind of get on them.
Mhm.
Especially, I mean, I don't know how it is in, most areas of the country or the world, but New York is a little tough because there's a lot of pay to play places. There's a lot of situations where they're like, you have to buy the tickets and then sell them and hope to make a profit, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
sure. Yeah.
So, we were doing a lot of that when we were little kids, and if we sold enough, then yeah, we'd make some money on it. Yeah, but we were just trying to get out and play. So, we were young and didn't really focus too much on the money as much as we did on just trying to get out and get some experience.
Yeah.
It was definitely, interesting, going to these bars as, an 11-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid, not supposed to be there.
Right.
It's like, well, why is this kid here? And, my parents would have to explain, like, they're the band, they're playing tonight. And they're like, well, as soon as they get off, you better be right next to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but we started, like you said, I was 11, my brother was 13. We started really early, and we we did the first one, and then like immediately did the second one, and we got really busy pretty quick, and so it pretty quickly morphed into actual work.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And people were completely open at the bar to having kids up on the stage playing. They were cool and into it.
It depended, some places were open to it, some weren't. My parents were always there supporting, which was, not which
Sure.
we were very lucky for that. I know a lot of people who did not have that kind of support. So, the fact that our parents would bring us there and they'd be like, listen, we're going to chaperone these kids. They're not going to be running around trying to, sneak drinks or whatever, at least not till we got a little older.
16,
And
17.
yeah. But so they were pretty good about explaining it to the bar owners. And then, when we would get up there and play, and once we got up and played a little bit, then some of these clubs started coming around like, oh wow, people are coming to actually see these kids, and they're actually doing pretty well. We started out just playing covers. My brother was when we were little, my brother had a much better work ethic than I did. He would just practice and practice and practice. So, he was 13, 14 years old, and he was able to play Joe Satriani songs.
Oh wow.
So we kind of focused a lot on like guitar heavy music, and and we started doing these cover shows where we were playing Van Halen tunes, and Ozzy Osbourne with Randy Rhoads solos, and all these different things, and so when people would see that like we were actually up there pulling this off, it just started to snowball, and the venues actually loved it because people were actually coming in to see this. It was kind of a weird little gimmick that there's these little kids up there playing these, and this dude's up there ripping these crazy guitar solos.
Yeah.
So it just kind of snowballed.
That's really cool.
That's really cool. And you and your brother, you started J-Rad,
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun to be able to find and listen to. Who else have you guys you played with other bands, right? Who else have you played with?
Well, who did J-Rad play with, or who have we played with individually?
You and your brother, who have you played with?
Together.
Together.
Oh, J-Rad played with so many. We played with so many people in the New York scene. We had the opportunity to get up on stage with Twisted Sister, Living Color, Skid Row, Mountain, Pat Travers, Rick Derringer, Filter, um, Blue Oyster Cult. We
So
had it was pretty crazy that we were up, I'm 14 years old and getting on stage opening for these guys. It was pretty nuts. And I mean, man, we J-Rad was together for a really long time. J-Rad was together for probably, I would say, at least minimum of 15 years. So we had the chance to really get out and play with a lot of different people over the years. Um, we opened for Vince Neil and Bret Michaels and Poison. We actually got on stage with Poison. Yeah, we kind of had this cool scene in New York where every time one of these rock acts would come in, a lot of those clubs would give us the offer to be the local opener on those shows. And so over time we just kept building a reputation and building and building.
that's awesome.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy to be going and doing that, getting home at 4 a.m. and then being like, all right, take a nap and go to school.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's what it was. It was a pretty crazy situation. Not your usual childhood.
No,
Yeah,
no,
for
and
sure.
I would not as crazy as yours, but I kind of had similar things too. I was going to
Yeah.
bars early and playing shows and stuff like that too, like
Nice.
15, 16 and all that. So
That's
um,
awesome.
I was
Yeah.
playing with the older kids and stuff as well. They would be like, hey, this, you come play with us. So that I was always playing with older people as a young kid. So I
Right.
developed quicker. And all these bands that were playing these shows, they'd have someone that couldn't play, so they'd have me come in and play and stuff like that too. So
Right. And so
I kind of, and
and
there was,
you're in Arizona, right?
yes, yeah.
So it like what was the scene like? Because in New York, to be honest, that like when I was a kid, and even now, New York, the rock scene was hard. There wasn't really too much of it, especially people my age. It
Yeah.
was much more hip hop and stuff. Like, did you guys have that kind of scene out there?
Yeah, because I started I was more in the early 90s when I was able to do this, early to mid 90s. So there was still somewhat of a scene. Like
You got to jam with Jim Blossoms.
Gym Blossoms, I
That's
got to
cool.
jam with. And then like there was Flotsam and Jetsam played, so there was times I would open for them and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean nothing like big names other than those two, but there was like a lot of times where a drummer wouldn't be able to play a gig or something. I'd fill in because I knew a lot of people in the scene and stuff like that. And I was younger, so it was, out here it was more of okay, as soon as you come in through the back door to play the show, and then as soon as you're done, you leave out the back door. And
Right.
I wait for everyone else to tear down. They were tearing my drums down and bringing them out to me and stuff like that.
Right.
Right, use a house kit, and it's like in and out, and he plays
Yeah.
he leaves, and that was it. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, kind of different, but I mean, yeah, unfortunately the rock scene was kind of dying out at that point. It was getting more into the new metal and stuff like that, and
Right.
so luckily it's
Gotcha.
coming back though. I think so. I think rock's having a big upside.
It's having a resurgence. It is.
Yeah,
It definitely is. No doubt about it.
yeah. So when we saw you, I noticed that you're a very flashy player, which I am too. I love that. Where did that start? Who are your influences? I have a guess. Probably Mike Portnoy was a big part of that. Shannon Larkin, probably. Yeah. So.
Yeah, so definitely Portnoy was an early one. When I was really little and I first started getting into it, the drummer that I saw that was the crazy man, flashy, that got me into that first was Keith Moon.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Keith was the first like wild man that I saw that made me go, whoa, that's cool,
Yeah.
And then Portnoy definitely with the Flash, and Shannon Larkin's definitely one of them. Morgan Rose probably more than any.
Okay.
Morgan is definitely one of my biggest influences in that regard. One that later on, after I had played with him and kind of, I was already doing the flashy thing, but I had met Zoltan Chaney from
Oh
the
yeah,
Vince
I
Neil
showed
Band.
her. Yeah, her that.
Yeah, and so Zoltan and I actually hung out one day before a show that we were playing together, and so we started talking, and I had obviously seen him go a little nuts, and so I kind of knew at that show, like, I gotta step my game up a little bit, try to go toe to toe with Zoltan. But I'd already been doing it at that point, but he definitely kind of inspired me to try to take it up a notch a little. So yeah, I mean, but mainly I would say with the Flash, Morgan was probably my biggest influence, just with the way that he just swings. He's like his arms are like whips, and Shannon is very much the same way, and Will Hunt, those guys all have this kind of movement to them that I really, really fell in love with. And then the one actually that I didn't necessarily get the influence as far as the movement and the flashy and the tricks and all that. But somebody who kind of gave me some inspiration on how to make the most of that was actually Corky Lang from Mountain.
Okay.
So when I was, I don't remember how old I was, probably 14, 15, and we were opening for Mountain, and he had been watching me from backstage, side stage area, and he came over to me after the show, and he said, listen, he goes, you are doing all this crazy stuff back there. He's like, it's incredible. He goes, you're making one mistake. I was like, okay, what is that? He goes, it's the way you're setting up your drum set. I said, well, what do you mean? I'm comfortable with it. He goes, yeah, but you have all your cymbals in front of you. Nobody can see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So he was like, do yourself a favor and keep all the shit out of the way in front of you. Move your cymbals off to the side a little more, make things a little lower, a little flatter, whatever. He goes, and then he goes, you'll probably have things out of your way where you can get a little more flashy, but then people will also start to see it. So I was like, you know what? Let me try that. And I went home and I started tweaking how my drum kit was set up. And it did kind of open me up a little bit more to being able to do even more of that flashy stuff. So while he didn't necessarily show me any tricks, he kind of gave me the inspiration to tweak how I was setting things up, which led to more.
Exactly. Have you ever seen Steve Moore? Do you know who that is? The drummer at the Wrong Gig guy?
Oh, yeah, I've seen him. Yeah,
he's another fun
cool.
one too.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, I had to bring him up because I remember that was one of those. I was like, "What in the hell is he doing? He's bringing his hand forward and the suit and all that. Like, how is he even doing this in a suit? It's crazy."
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I've had to do it in a suit before. It's not easy.
Yeah. No, I don't
it's
think
not.
I would not think so. So
it's not. I like shorts and sleeveless shirts. It makes life easier.
Yeah, for sure.
So we first saw you with Adrenaline Mob in Scottsdale on July 9th.
Oh, look at that picture.
Do you remember that show at all?
I do remember that show. If I'm not mistaken,
so small.
It was
just played like there was 10,000 people there.
I remember it was a small venue. If I'm not mistaken, I think so. That stage had a really low ceiling.
Yes.
And I vaguely remember, I was doing my drum solo and I stood up on the chair and I remember hitting my head on the ceiling.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
So we got there really super early and we got to hang out with Jane all day long. She was just the sweetest, most amazing person we'd ever met. And we didn't have the VIP tickets, because when we went online, it said it was sold out. And she's like, oh yeah, there was a glitch. Do you want them? We're like, oh yeah, we want them. So we were fortunate enough to get those at the last minute. And I'm glad we did, because it was just me and Justin, two friends that we came with, and then one other couple. And that was it for the meet and greets. And it's just like, wow.
And it was a lot of fun because we were just asking questions, talking, having a blast, just hanging out.
Yeah. Remember David Z was like, how do you survive in this desert heat? It's horrible. And then he was he was so amazed that our time never changed, and he couldn't grasp that.
Yeah, we don't have a time change. It was hilarious. So we that was just a great experience.
We had the greatest night.
That was probably
after the show, we hung out with Andrea Kaufman, who was there to meet with David Z. They were spending the rest of the weekend together, and we're still friends with her today, and she's amazing. She's awesome. But we'll never forget that. Justin has your set list. You gave him the set list.
Oh yeah, look at that. Wow. I don't even remember what we were playing back then.
Crossed out a couple and changed. Chasing Dragons and Rebel Yell got changed out.
Yeah, we made some tweaks. Yep.
And everyone, we're showing them the picture we took with them and the set list, which we'll post to our socials when this airs.
And then after the show, Justin helped you break down your drums. I don't know if
I do remember. Yes, I do.
That was awesome. That was just the best show ever.
Yeah, that was the best concert experience we've ever had.
We got to see your pre-show. Oh my God, I'm
Like,
losing.
oh, the sound check and
Yeah,
all that.
sound check.
Sound check.
So we got to see Russell Allen just leaning up against the wall, singing "Chasing Dragons" like nothing.
That was a lot of fun. So we
I'm
want to thank
glad.
you for that. Yeah, that was,
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad.
That was
you
an
guys were very,
amazing
very
show.
cool about it. And like she said, you would never know that there was like only 40 people there or whatever.
It
You
was
guys played
such a
like it was a
small
sold
school.
out arena. So,
Ah,
and
thank you.
just nonstop.
You know what? That's the gig. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing when you get to get in front of a huge crowd. But the fact of the matter is, whether it's 5,000 people or 5 people, you're lucky that there are people that want to hear you play and watch you play. And you know what? Whether the place is sold out or practically empty, if there's one person in that room that came here to get a killer show, they deserve that killer show. You know, and we all know and we're all grateful that there's even just a few people out there that want to hear what we have to say and want to hear what we have to play. So we're always, every one of us had that mentality, and I think we all still do,
That's awesome.
And what was the audition process like getting into Adrenaline Mob?
Yes. So it was actually it was kind of crazy. So I got a call. I was teaching drums at a local drum school, and I got a call one day out of the blue while I was between lessons, and I was just sitting there kind of noodling on the kit, and I got a call from a number I did not recognize, and it turned out to be Russell Allen.
Boy.
And he basically, I told you that JRAD had opened for Twisted Sister in the past.
Mhm.
We had opened for them many, many times over the years. They're Long Islanders too, so we had become pretty friendly with that entire camp. And of course, before I was in Adrenaline Mob, AJ Perro was in Adrenaline Mob, so there was connections between Twisted Sister and Adrenaline Mob. And I know Russell had been, I guess he was playing on I guess he was with Symphony X at the time, and he was playing on a festival that Twisted was at, and they were all talking, and he was mentioning to them that they were, looking to get Adrenaline Mob back up and running. And some of the guys from that camp made the recommendation to look into me. So he found some videos and they gave him my contact information. So he called me up and asked me if I'd be willing to do it. And I, of course, said yes, So he put me in contact with Mike, who basically sent me a list of songs to film myself playing.
Okay.
So I went ahead and I learned, it was 4 songs. I learned all 4 of them, filmed the videos, and sent them out to the guys, and then just waited for a response. They called me back and said that they loved the videos. So now the next step was they wanted me to come out to Mike's studio and kind of do an in-person audition at his studio with him to see how well I can pull it off in person, because you never, like video auditions, you never know what it is, because like I could have potentially done 200 takes of each song before I landed the good one, Yeah. So they wanted me to come out and do that. So I went to Mike's studio. It was just him and I in there, and we set up a kit, and we didn't play together. He basically just said, "Here's the deal. I'm going to put on Hit the Wall, and and I'm going to have you he goes, I'm going to eliminate the drum tracks. I'm going to have you record your own Hit the Wall drum track right now, and let's see how it goes." So I said, okay. So we spent a lot of time actually setting the kit up and getting it sounding good and all that, for recording purposes. And then it was one take, go through Hit the Wall. And I played it, and he was like, okay, cool. Thanks, man. So we start breaking down and whatever. So we spent hours and hours setting up, and then I got one take, Hit the Wall. And then it was, okay, see you later, kid.
And that was Portnoy. So how was that playing to Portnoy song, being he was your influence, playing his track to get into a band essentially?
It was kind of crazy because, when I did the video auditions, I'm playing along with the recordings, and at the time there were none of these like pieces of software where you can eliminate a drum track or whatever. You had to play along with it. So it was play it note for note, otherwise it's going to sound like a mess.
Yeah.
So I learned the songs note for note for note for note. And then when I went to the studio with Mike, he said, listen, play it the right way. He's like, but throw a little bit of your own thing in there. So I was like, okay, this is kind of on the spot.
Yeah.
So, I had to kind of sit there and figure out like right then and there, like, okay, how do I maintain what Portnoy did, but also throw a little bit of me in there? But what was kind of nice about it, I was definitely intimidated, just thinking about, the fact that I'm coming into something where Mike Portnoy was the guy on the seat beforehand.
Mhm.
But because like I said, he was one of my biggest influences, a lot of my style, I think, is very similar to him.
Yeah.
So I do have a pretty similar approach to Mike in a lot of ways and do some pretty similar fills. So that I think definitely helped, just the fact that he was already an influence of mine. So I did that one take, and then that was kind of it. I left, no idea what the reaction was because it was just Mike and I in the room. Russ was actually out with Trans-Siberian Orchestra at the time. That's why he couldn't be there. And he just said, "Hey, we'll let you know." And then I sitting around, no clue, was just back to normal life, day job, wondering if I was going to get the call. And I think it was about 2 weeks later that I got a phone call from Mike and Russ on a conference call at the same time saying, "Hey, we want to welcome you in." So it was basically a two-step process: first video auditions, then going into the studio with Mike, and then just waiting on the call.
Very cool. Very cool. Were there because and I don't want anyone to sleep on AJ Pirro too. I'm glad he got to do this album before he passed. Rest in
Oh
peace.
yeah. Oh
Because
yeah.
it really showcased that dude's chops. Man,
Oh, it
that
did.
Devil Went Down to Georgia he did.
Oh yeah.
That is a killer song to play.
It that one's a pain. Yeah, that one
Yeah, it
was
is.
really, really difficult. And it was AJ, I had an interesting viewpoint of AJ because they were local guys and I had seen them play so many times. Like if you think about it, yeah, like people listen to Twisted Sister and they don't necessarily hear super complex drumming, right? It's all solid drumming. It's all really good. And I mean, listen, you'll recognize the We're Not Going to Take It drum beat and fills and everything, some of the most recognizable things on the planet, which just shows you how good he was from there.
Yeah,
But he wasn't really showcasing his chops too much, except when he did his drum solo.
yeah, yeah.
He would do
Sounds
a solo at every one of those shows, and I would see him do that, and I was like, damn, dude can
yeah,
play.
yeah.
I didn't know that from listening to his records. So I kind of knew. And then once I, got into the whole Adrenaline Mob mix and I started really listening to what he did beforehand, I was like, damn,
Yeah, yeah.
he
It
can
was
play.
I remember when I
He can
put
play.
that like the mob is back and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, this is
Yeah.
from Twisted Sister. Holy shit.
Yeah. He was a beast. He really
I remember,
was.
I remember when he joined, I was like, can you handle the Mike Portnoy stuff? And I was like, and I heard that. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, he's got it. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
he's good to go.
He pulled it off
Yeah, for
easily.
sure. Sure.
Easily.
Yeah.
Do you have any fun Adrenaline Mob tour stories, like shenanigans and pranks? Because we know David Z was a big prankster.
Oh yeah. Dave was how do you describe Dave? Dave was like a 5-year-old in a 30-something-year-old's body.
Yeah.
Dave, yeah, Dave was definitely he was a little kid, if we were on the road and we stopped at like a Walmart or a Target for supplies and whatnot, everybody would be coming out with all the necessities that they need, and he would just come out with like a box of donuts and a carton of milk, and that's all he needs for the day. That's just who he was. But with David, it was kind of interesting. David and I had crossed paths a lot over the years because we were both New York guys.
Mhm.
Um, and we had played on a lot of the same shows when he was in his band ZO2.
Mhm.
Um, but because of the age difference, we never really interacted much. Like we were always around each other, but never really talked because, back then he was probably in his mid to early 20s and I was like, 14. We weren't going to be friendly at that point. I was a little kid and he was a dude out there, working the scene. So we had met a million times, but didn't really know each other. The first time we actually met and hung out was the first time that the whole band actually got together. And that was to do our first photo shoot. We
Okay.
had never all been in the same room together until that point. So when we met and did that shoot, David immediately was just being himself, and he got this like crazy idea he kind of hijacked the photo shoot, like completely took control of it. We did these photos and then he just had this crazy idea. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think it's on YouTube still, that we did this like initiation video
I think I
where
remember that. Yeah.
where like Mike and Russ initiate David and I, and they
Yeah.
start like beating us with baseball bats and
Okay, I
blood
remember.
everywhere. That
Yeah.
was that was completely made up on the fly. That was all David's idea. David just came up with the whole thing, directed it on the fly, filmed it, found this warehouse we're doing the whole thing in, and stayed up all night editing the video, making the blood spatter, and all. Like it was just, and that was the first time we had ever met. First time we ever met was like that. And then you know, he was just constantly doing things like that. You know, we were always just, you know, we'd be sitting on the tour bus and then all of a sudden he'd just come out with an acoustic guitar and start a campfire sing along. You know, that's just the way that he was, you know. So I mean, it was with him, it was kind of cool because it's not like the typical crazy stories you hear about, you know, with the, you know, oh, this person got so hammered and this person got, you know, messed up on the, you know, whatever, on whatever. It was always something a little more fun and childish with David, which was kind of cool, you know, and it left us with really cool things to look back on, these little videos we have of us all just like singing together and
You guys did
performing with us.
Doobie Brothers, right? A couple times and
Doobie
stuff
Brothers
like
one,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
that one went like viral
yeah.
online, you know. So that was just one of them. That happened almost every night. He was just the way he was, you know. We would just be singing together and playing games and all that kind of stuff. So he really brought this sense of like innocence to our whole situation when we were all just hanging out. You know, on stage he's as badass of a rock star as they come, but he brought this really fun innocence to the way we were all hanging out together, and it left us all with a lot of really cool lasting memories, you know.
Yeah, for sure. How was he with his eating on tour? Because we heard him with Zebra, they would put some stuff down. So was he like that with you guys too?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, David could eat. David could eat. I'm probably the only person who can rival him at that point.
Okay. Okay.
But he the difference was that he could outdo anybody with the sweets.
Okay.
David, it made no sense. The dude would take his shirt off and he's got the body of a Greek god with the abs and the whole thing. But then you'd walk onto the bus and he's just literally downing a box of donuts and cookies and milk and cake, and it's just like all he's eating.
Yeah.
It made no sense. I don't know how he did it. You know, he actually, I mean, I watched him sit down on a park bench and break it in half. You know, like you would have thought from the way that he ate and the way that he would break this park bench that he was like a 500-pound guy. But then you look at him and it's like, no, he's chiseled beyond belief. I don't know how it worked, but it did. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, none of us do. None of us do, because
you know, and he wasn't a drinker. You know, it was just that was the way that he partied. You know, he and I were kind of the, you know, the ones who would sit back and want to just like eat snacks like that. You know, that's the way that we were. I'm not a cool rock star. I'm a little kid who hits things with sticks.
That's how I looked at myself too. I never got into the heavy drinking or drugs or anything. I just love playing. So yeah.
That's it. I consider myself a professional caveman with the mindset of a 10-year-old.
Yeah, pretty much where I'm at too. Yeah, for sure. So we know that you were just on tour with Slaughter, which is kicking off again in March, early March. You also did double duty playing with George Lynch on the Rock Island Fest. How was all that? And would you like to tell our listeners who else you played with amongst those two?
Yeah. So the George Lynch thing was really fun. That was kind of a last minute fill-in thing. I got the call that Jimmy couldn't make a couple of shows, so they asked me if I would come in and play, and I said yeah. But what was interesting about it was that it wasn't supposed to start at Rock Island Fest. It was supposed to be a couple of shows a few weeks after that. The Rock Island Festival creeped up on George only about a week before the show. He got called and asked to do it kind of at the last minute because of other bands backing out. I don't know if it was COVID related or whatever it was, but so he got kind of thrown into the mix, and he called me up and said, "Hey man, I know you're coming in a few weeks, but you think you'll be ready to come in like 5 days instead?" And so I said, yeah, you know, I was already kind of studying the material, and then it just so happened that Slaughter got the same call to come in at the last minute. So I agreed to do it with George, and then I got the call like literally the next day from the Slaughter guys saying, "Hey, we're doing this show and you got to come out. And I was like, well, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm going to be there anyway, fellas. And they happened to get booked on the same day. Only about an hour and a half between the two. I think it was Quiet Riot was playing in between. So it was literally get on stage, play with Lynch, run backstage, put on some fresh clothes, and then run back out. But it was fun. You know, George he's a really, really great guy. I love jamming with him. It was really cool to get to play with them for a few shows. Slaughter is, you know, I love playing with them. That those guys are my family. You know, we have such a good time together. I was really fortunate to come into the mix with them. Really happy that I get to keep working with them. Before Slaughter, you know, between Adrenaline Mob and Slaughter, I had a chance to do a couple of cool things. I got to fill in for a little while with Doro. That was really fun. After Adrenaline Mob, there was a short stint where Mike Orlando and I started another band called Stereo Satellite together. That one didn't last very long, but we had a couple of cool, really experiences with that band. So, you know, I did a lot of for hire work and things like that in between. You know, the difficulty was kind of trying to find like a home after everything happened with Adrenaline Mob. It was hard to find something else that was really steady. You know, it took a little while, and then luckily I, you know, from meeting people over the years and was able to, you know, eventually meet up with the Slaughter guys, and you know, that just kind of happened out of nowhere too. It was just a amazing situation where the stars aligned, and, you know, was able to just kind of meet up with these guys at the M3 festival, and boom.
And George Lynch was on Eddie Trunk before that show, and he had nothing but great things to say about you too. So I'll let you know that.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
Yeah. He was because I guess the bassist was or someone was filling on bass too. And he's like, oh yeah, we got this guy on bass, and we got Jordan playing drums, and Jordan saw to play with him before. He's awesome, and nothing but great things to say about you. So
yeah, George is the man. Yeah, he the bass player is fairly new. George's whole band is kind of new. I think the only person who's been with him for a long time is the drummer Jimmy DeAnda. The two of them have been playing together for a while, but his bass player Jaron Galino and his singer Gabriel Colon, they're both fairly, I don't know how long they've been with him, but they're fairly new, and they're phenomenal. Like the new lineup of Lynch Mob really is killer. They're amazing. Cool. But yeah, it just worked out. I met George through Slaughter. Oh, that's how I met him. You know, and I met Slaughter through Will Hunt. I met Will Hunt by playing at the M3 festival with Tokyo Motor Fist. That was another band that I've been playing with for a while.
That was really cool. Yeah.
I'm still with those guys. Just hard to meet, you know, get the schedules together because everybody's playing in multiple bands. But I was playing with Tokyo Motor Fist when I met Will. Will's the one who introduced me to Slaughter. And the way that I met Tokyo Motor Fist was I met Steve Brown, the guitar player, through David. Because the two of them were in a band together. So it all kind of ties back to Adrenaline Mob. And Adrenaline Mob I met through Twisted Sister, which I met from J-Rad. So it's like, it's this crazy thing where it's like it all really stems back to what I was doing as a kid, and it just, you know,
it's awesome.
Relationships just built.
Yeah. On your downtime, what do you like to listen to?
Ooh, tough call. I mean, I'm all over the map. You know, I definitely, you know, as I mentioned before, I'm a pretty big Seven Dust fan. Morgan Rose is like my hero, so I listen to a lot of stuff like Seven Dust. A lot of the metalheads hate it when I say this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I love Nickelback. I'm a big Nickelback fan. You know, I Rush. I've always been a Rush fan. I always go back to some of the older stuff that I mentioned in the beginning. I love Tower of Power. You know, I'm all over the place. One moment you'll hear me listen to some really heavy stuff, you know, and then the next minute you'll hear me listening to John Mayer. You know, I mean, I definitely have a pretty wide variety of stuff that I like to check out, and I like finding new things. You know, I'm pretty often in situations where I'm kind of listening to music because I have to learn it for a gig. So it's actually sometimes hard to come by moments where I can listen to music just for fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually hard to come by. Like right now, I'm actually I'm studying a whole bunch of songs because I'm flying out the day after tomorrow to go do some rehearsals and go play Daytona Bike Week with Blandini. It's Blando, the guitar player from Slaughter, has this other thing that he does, and he invited me out to come play with him for that. So I've been spending the last couple of weeks learning, 20 something songs for that. So I haven't had any time to listen to anything other than that. But it's like once that gig's over though, and I'll finally have a day where it's like, oh, I could just put on the headphones and enjoy something. Like I said, it could be anything from John Mayer to Winery Dogs to Sly and the Family Stone to
Winery Dog.
Seven Dust. I just saw Winery Dogs actually. I was just there. They just came to my hometown a few days ago, about a week ago. I got to go see them. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, we're going to see them. I think, well, they haven't announced the Arizona stuff yet, but I'm just going by, I think early May is when they're going to be here, just guessing, but we're going to definitely go see them. So
cool.
I'm going to do some quick drummer rap. Excuse me. Drummer rapid fire real quick with you.
Okay.
2 kicks or double pedal?
Double pedal.
Okay. Large kit, small kit.
Jeez. In between.
Okay.
How about this?
Uh-huh.
Lots of cymbals. I like lots of cymbals.
Okay.
I'll go with
I
that.
do too. Yeah. Because you get all kinds of different sounds with those. So
yeah.
Is there any endorsements that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. So I've been with Vader drumsticks for a really long time. I love Vader. I've been using the same model for many, many years, the Vader 1A. It's my favorite stick of all time. Been using it forever and don't see myself ever changing. I'm with Evans Drumheads. I love Evans. Been also using them for many, many years. I was fortunate to use both Evans and Vader long before I was endorsed by them, and just happened to get lucky enough to be able to officially join the family for both. So it's really nice that I was able to actually officially become part of those teams when I was already in love with their products. Recently, I actually just started using X-Vive audio, their wirelesses for in-ear monitors and stuff. Yep. So I've just started using them over the last few months. They're phenomenal. Love using them. Drum tacks, it's drum dampeners. I use them. And I also I don't use this on the road because I'm always traveling and usually flying, so I'm usually using backline. But I also am with a company called Sky Percussion. They're a company out of Germany that does just snare drums. They don't do full kits; they just do snares. And I have one of their snares that I use on a lot of recording sessions and stuff like that. So, and a lot of the videos that I'll post from home, I'm usually using that snare. It's one of my go-tos. Yeah, those are all the companies that I'm currently with.
Okay, very.
How many snare drums do you have?
I don't know if you can see them back there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least I don't know, 20, maybe. Yeah, maybe 20. But ironically, the one that's on the kit right now is the Sky Percussion one. I was just playing with it before I got on this call.
Awesome. And what drums do you use?
DW. I've been playing DW drums for a really, really long time. Just a fan. Yeah, I've been using DW and Zildjian cymbals.
Okay.
That's my go-tos.
All right. And you have a website which has a store, which you have autographed drumsticks, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And you also teach and everything else. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So my website is jordancannata.com. There's a merch store on there for all sorts of shirts and signed sticks, and on occasion when I have some heads and stuff that I could throw up there, I'll do that too. The teaching, I teaching is one of my passions. My tour schedule these days is really, really busy, so I don't get to teach as much as I used to. But whenever I do have some time off and I can get some Zoom lessons in, I love doing that. It's something that I've always been passionate about because, like I said to you guys at the beginning, I took lessons from day one, and it was that kind of guidance that got me to really get into it, and not just about getting into drumming, but it's also how I found new music. I never knew Rush until my childhood drum teacher exposed me to Rush. He took me to my first Rush concert.
Oh, nice.
So it was, that's just another thing that, like, even just the relationship with the teacher mattered a lot to me. He and I still talk to this day. We're still really, really close. So for me, lessons was always a really big deal. And I just love being able to share that with people. So every chance that I can, where I have some time to squeeze some lessons in, I do. If somebody happens to live locally, I'll do it in person, but 99% of what I do is online.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I when I'm not out touring, I also do a lot of session work. This is my studio. I'm fully equipped to record for people from here, so I do a lot of remote sessions. And yeah, I mean, it's drums 24/7. That's what it is.
We've seen some of your YouTubes as well, where you play the track and stuff like that. It's really cool because it looked like you played to some of the stuff I play to, which is really fun.
Yeah, we watched the Hell
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hell Yeah
video.
The Hell Yeah ones. Yeah, I did some of those. Yep. I remember doing the Hell Yeah videos. Those were fun. Yep. I think the one that actually the YouTube video I did that I believe I could be wrong about this, but I think the video that Russ Allen saw that got him to give me a call was the Avenged Sevenfold one that I did.
Okay. Was that Beast and Harlot?
Yeah, I did a long time ago. I did a Beast and Harlot video. I think that was the video that Russ saw that made him go, okay, I'm going to call this kid.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was just, some of those covers were fun to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they're such a blast. Do you have anything to promote? Where can our listeners find you? We know you're going back with Slaughter here on the 10th of March.
Yeah. So as far as the Slaughter tour dates, you could find those on Slaughter's website, slaughterUSA.com. They got everything listed up there. And I also have a bunch of it listed on my site, but I admittedly have to go on and update that because I don't have them all up yet. But yeah, jordancannata.com. I'm on Facebook, Jordan Cannata Official, Instagram, just Jordan Cannata, YouTube, Jordan Cannata. So I'm on all the social media pages, and tour dates you can definitely find through any of the Slaughter pages. I'm going to be out with those guys all year round, pretty much.
It looks like a pretty long tour. So
yeah. We work a lot. We don't. We pretty much fly everywhere. So we go out, do a few shows, come home for a couple of days. Go out, do a few shows, come home for a couple of days. So it's a lot of back and forth. But that's what allows us to kind of be consistent. We're not going away for a month and then going home for a month. It lets us kind of be consistent and work year round, which I think we all really, really like. And I think we're actually, I don't know how far away it is from you guys, but I think we're coming to Tucson pretty soon.
Yep, that's not far from us at all because you're doing Bullhead as well, but that's a little bit of a drive. But Tucson's about a 2-hour drive for us, which is not bad. So we're thinking of going and checking you guys out. So yeah.
Let me know if you guys are coming. Definitely.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Let me know, and I will make sure I see you there.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. And is there anything else you wanted to plug, or are you?
I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. Slaughter is going to be kind of taking up the majority of the year. And, like I said, I for people that are interested in lessons, you can message me through the website or, message me through Instagram or whatever. And, I'm always open to giving lessons whenever I have the free time and schedule and recording sessions and things like that. But yeah, that's pretty much life these days.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And you've been nothing but awesome to us since
thank you.
7 years ago. So
I appreciate it. And yeah, definitely keep me posted if you guys are coming to Tucson. I'll definitely see you guys there.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Drumming up conversation.